on Talking Shop, featuring all of the cool stuff we do on the experience and getting you guys all hyped up for what's coming up next in comic books by talking with the people that make them. Some people have so much skill that they work in all different aspects of comic books, and that's who we're talking to next. This is Andrea Molinari.
Hello.
I didn't do it to you, but I swear last week Schmalky came on and I held his name I tried to do it for a whole minute.
No, man.
Like it was a sports event.
So how far did you get?
I got really far. He started just talking. I was like, oh, what do I do now? Miss Jen's keeping on going.
It's the price of fame. What can we say?
Oh, it's so true.
It's Joe's cross to bear.
Oh yeah. So did the Shepherds start with Scouts Black Caravan first, or did it move over to Black Caravan later?
No, we started out with Black Caravan.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's a great group. I mean, the book makes sense for that imprint very much.
It's funny. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but it really has turned out to be, an excellent match. They've been really good to us, and I like working with the guys. They crack me up. They're both funny. They're kind of they remind me a little bit of Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello. There's such difference. You know what I mean? It's like Rich and Joseph are very different guys, but they match. They kind of work together. So it's just kind of funny. So.
What kind of roles does each of them have at Black Caravan? Or you guys just share all roles?
Well, I mean, for example, Rich, I know, does a lot of the design work. So the work on, for example, this is the trade paperback for the Shepherd. This is our Apocatastasis, the first volume. And all this design that he did, we had obviously the painting, David Mack's cover. And then if you look at the design, Rich mirrors that design, David's design throughout the volume, chapter breaks, that sort of thing. Some of the back matter and the front, some of the earlier essays at the beginning. I mean, that's Rich doing that. And it really, I mean, even things like one of the things you notice, he has this kind of, I don't know how well you can see it, but on the spine of the Black Caravan books, they have the picture of one of the key characters, and just little touches like that. You can just tell that it's done with a lot of love, he really cares about that. And then when you line them, there's a picture that he took of where the different volumes were lined up on the shelf, and you could see all those different, main characters that were on the spines. And it's just, that he's thinking that way, that he's thinking about a design across the line, that he's not seeing these as just individual books that have no connection to each other, but sense of this, bigger picture. And, I would say, Joseph, one of the things that he's doing is, he talks to me a lot about, that they really are trying to curate a collection, that it's not just any old books, but really hand selecting books that they really believe in and that they want to push, that they want to be part of the line. And of course that means a lot, knowing that, that the Shepherd's one of those books. I mean, it feels really an honor. But it's kind of funny because the tone of the Shepherd's very different than some of the books, that are in the Black Caravan line. So I sometimes laugh because I'll show some of these books to my wife, and I'll describe, what goes on in the book. Like, for example, Black Friday, which is, I would pitch it as, it's like you have these stores, during Black Friday, you have all these bad feelings, bad emotions. I said, imagine all that pooling like ink underneath the store and then essentially opening up a portal to hell, So she's like, whoa, that's very different than the Shepherd. I was like, oh, a little bit different. And then of course everybody friggin' dies, it's like, no, there'll be no survivors, So it's a very different feel, but it's cool, to be part of that. And the more I get to meet other Black Caravan creators, the more excited I get. Like, for example, I've been getting to know John Clark, of Black Friday, and talking with him about some of the future stories that he wants to tell, and helping him find, artists that will help him tell those stories. that's been a lot of fun. So that's one of the things that's been neat about being part of Black Caravan is the guys are very open to me being able to bring other titles to them. And next year we have at least 3 different titles that are going to be part of Black Caravan that I've helped bring to the imprint. So you feel like you get to be part of it, more than just your individual title, but helping to shape, a direction for the whole imprint, which is pretty cool.
So were these other creators that you had known from self-printing?
Well, there are people that I met, for example, all 3 of them are foreign creators. So we have a book coming out. I don't know how much I'm supposed to tell, but I'll just tell a little bit. We have a book called Vanity coming out, and Vanity is done by a Hungarian creator, Yuri Kurnev. And it's about Elizabeth Bathory. She's the blood countess. You might have heard of her, the one that bathed in the blood of virgins with the idea that it would make her young. Okay. This is a really intense graphic novel, a serious graphic novel. I absolutely love it. I think it's a really powerful literary piece, and I think people are going to really enjoy it. And I think it's going to make a great add to the Black Caravan collection. And then we have there's one by Marco Fontanilli, and it's called the Pentagram of Horror, and it's like one shot like horror stories, but his artwork is really amazing. And I encountered him because he submitted a book to Scout Proper, and it's called King Jira. Okay, and it involves it's kind of like a Godzilla knockoff type spoof type thing.
Oh.
And I was on the submission committee at the time, and when it came through, it was like everybody was like, "Well, hell yeah, sign this." We were all like, it was the only time that I've ever seen a book come in and everybody be like, "Oh, hell yeah," yeah, we're doing this. So when Marco came, he was working on another piece, and I saw it on his social media. I was like, "Oh, Marco, when this is done, I want to see this," because I had in mind to show it to Black Caravan, because the art that I was seeing was stupid good. So that's another one. And then the third one is done by Juan Torres. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he is known for doing Nancy in Hell, which was published by Image. And he's a well-known horror writer. He's done The Veil. He's done a number of a Straight Jacket. He did. There's Marco on there right now. Just saw him in the chat there. Marco, I'm telling stories about you, bud. You're stupid talented. You really are. And what time is it over there? It's got to be 11 o'clock at night. It's like at least 6 hours ahead of us there in Italy. So, so Marco, very talented guy. I can't wait for you to see his stuff. Both King Jira and also Pentagram of Horror. Those are going to be, amazing. People are going to really adore them. So, anyway, so Juan Torres is the third one, and that one's called Phantasmagoria. And to pitch that to you is imagine Victorian England, Sherlock Holmes, but not Sherlock Holmes. Imagine that Sherlock Holmes is actually a warlock, and he's dealing with occult-related crimes. And that's the way I would pitch Phantasmagoria. It's very cool. Very cool. And the artwork is done by Joe Picardo, a Spaniard, great artist. He did the issue 4 of The Recount. You might remember the work that he did there. Very talented guy. So anyway, those are 3 books that I'm honored to say that I had played a role in helping to bring to Black Caravan.
That's amazing. So, hey, Marco, you can put up your social media links. You're completely allowed to put those in the comments. We like to give everybody ways to follow people that they might be interested in. That's a good way to do it. So pop them up there. Links to whatever you want. Okay, so I looked a little bit further into your, I feel like I've known you for a long time, but there's some things when I was just doing, I like to do research, see if I can find anything that'd be interesting to talk about.
Sure.
But I want to talk about this awesome role-playing game that you created. What was the
You're pulling way back into my past. Okay, so a little bit of background. I have a doctorate, PhD in early Christian studies. And I did a lot of background in Greco-Roman. I've always been interested in the cultural context for Christianity, for its birth, you know, the world that it came up in. Because the more I studied, the more I realized that, you know, a lot of times we read the New Testament or something like that, and you need to understand the New Testament is a fly on the wall, you know, of the greater Greco-Roman world. And we're trying to understand that fly on the wall without reference to the bigger picture. And so I was very interested in trying to understand the bigger picture. And I spent a lot of time reading Greco-Roman authors that were not having anything to do with Christianity, just trying to set the context, the thought process, you know, and not just Greek and Roman, but, you know, Jewish authors, other authors from around the Mediterranean basin, try to learn. Anyway, long story short, one of the areas I specialized in was martyrdom and persecution in that early period. And I spent 10 years, believe it or not, as a youth minister. And so I was thinking about, you know, on the one hand, I'm in this academic world, you know, and on the other hand, I'm dealing with, I started my youth group at 5th grade, and we did 5th and 6th grade, 7th and 8th grade together, and then high school together. So I'm thinking, how do I relate to these young people, and how do I help them connect with some of this? And so that's where the role-playing game called Romans and Christians AD 60, I want to say 64. And it's been a while since I looked at it, but I developed a role-playing game which allowed them to kind of play that out. It was set in Rome. They involved lots of costuming. We'd play it in the evening, so it was kind of a mixture of hide and go seek. You know, and it was basically the idea of the Romans looking for the Christians. That's where the hide and go seek thing, and just so the Christians would form these churches and go hide, and it was set supposedly during the Neronic persecution of that period. So anyway, that's the backstory for that.
Could it get any more serious than Nero? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was pretty. But it was extremely popular with the kids. I mean, they loved it. I mean, the difference with it is because we invited the parents to play. And typically we do it in 7th and 8th grade. So it started to get a reputation. You know, you'd have high schoolers coming back and participating, helping out. And of course, you'd have the parents playing along with the kids, because as a youth minister, that was one of the things I really thought was important, is to kind of integrate, you know, like family level experiences. So the idea being that you'd have this experience at church and you'd go back home and you talk about it, you know, and that it would be something you'd discuss at the dinner table. And I can't tell you how many times I had, you know, a father or mom come back and say, you know, it's 3 years ago that we did that, and we still mention it. We talk about it over dinner. And I thought, wow, there's a success right there, you know, that you were able to move the discussion of faith and religion, you know, into the household and kind of into real life, as opposed to relegated to Sunday morning kind of thing.
Oh yeah. And for a lot of people, even like long-term church members, people are so focused on the biblical accounts, but they don't study enough to know any historical context for what was going on in that era and why the things that were happening there were happening, because it's so different for us. We're not even part of that side of the world.
Right.
So many people haven't even visited there, so you can't possibly understand interactions between the different peoples of the day.
And so culture matters. The cultural context absolutely matters. It's like trying to read these comic books. If you projected them forward 300, 400, 500, 1,000 years forward, we read these and we understand them, or at least most of what we read, because of a set context that we all kind of share, and we take for granted that context. So like, you know, like for example, one of the books that Scout puts out that's really big on context is Metal Shark Bro. Like if you ever read Metal Shark Bro, they're constantly making references, you know, like kind of like they're very time related stuff. And so like if you were to take Metal Shark Bro and pop it forward 1,000 years, people would be like, what the heck is this book? You know, you have to understand the cultural context that book comes out of for it to make. A lot of the jokes are based on that stuff, you know, about it's assuming the writer is assuming that the reader shares a cultural worldview and a cultural experience. And if that breaks down, then it becomes hard to understand.
Yeah, it would be like, I would think somebody that was completely unfamiliar with American culture watching Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Be lost on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you don't know. I mean, you have to think about all the historical moments in that film. You know, like him going past John F. Kennedy and telling me he has to go to the bathroom. You know, things like that. Not even knowing who that character is and why that character would be considered important in the time that movie's made. Because the trauma, the collective trauma that our American experience was of losing that particular president, you know, all that kind of gets taken for granted by the maker of that movie. But like I said, you push it forward in time, and now all that has to be explained to the viewer because they just don't get it. They're like, well, okay, he's a president. Why is that important? Why do we see him meeting that guy? You know,
right. I have another question for you.
Sure.
When did you start in editing? And was it just from editing your own book and then people realizing you're really great at doing it? Or have you always
Okay, well, I have an undergrad degree in journalism. So that, you know, I was studying that I went to college. My freshman year was in fall of '85, which tells you something. Yeah, but I learned the tricks of the trade of editing back then.
You're older than me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually had classes in editing. So, you know, there's a editing style, the AP style book, you know, relying on that as kind of like a Bible for, you know, guide. I still use it. I actually have an online account for the style book, and I consult it multiple times, usually every day. So that kind of was in the background. And then of course I didn't use journalism proper because I was going into my academic career, and in academics, we're all poor. Okay. So you have to learn to edit your own stuff. And if you're lucky, you might be able to trade off with other scholars who take pity on you and say, I'll tell you what, I'll edit yours, but you have to edit my article. And you just pray that they're at least, you know, reasonably knowledgeable about your area of specialty. Because remember, this stuff is like highly specialized. It's really specialized. So like there are books, I wrote 2 books, 2 scholarly monographs, and you know, there's probably 50 people on the planet that would even care, even read the book, you know? So you're literally spending 2.5, 3 years of your life writing a book that no one cares about. I mean, let's call it a spade. But you'll find it. Like you can go to major, you know, research universities, Harvard, Yale, places like that, University of Michigan Library, you'd find it. But no one's read it, you know. There might be one person in the time that they've had it that's bothered to read it. So, you know, you go from that kind of level of minutia to suddenly, you know, going into something else, something radically different with the comic books.
Oh yeah.
But believe it or not, I think I was actually well prepared to make that jump, as weird as it is, because the kind of literature that I like to read in the ancient world was all popular stuff. Like, you know, I was reading like early Christian legends and, you know, fantastic stuff, just, you know, the kind of stuff. So I mean, talking animals, you know, people flying, you know, through the air, that type of stuff. And so going into the comic books really wasn't as big of a shift as you would think. So
that's amazing. So what if I was going to go hunt down your early scholarly articles? Where would I find them? Because I'm a nerd.
Yeah. Well, some of them, it might be harder to find. You'd have to have access to kind of a research library. But I was a specialist. This will give you an idea of how I'm laughing as I say this. It'll show you what kind of a nerd we're talking about here. I was a specialist in legends dealing with the apostles. And if that isn't narrow enough, I specialized in legends dealing with Peter, St. Peter. Okay. Oh, wow. That's called being really, you know, a one-note kind of guy. So both of my monographs deal with, one's called the Acts of Peter and the 12 Apostles, which is an early Christian text that was discovered in 1945 in Egypt. And my work was the first book-length treatment of that in any language. And then, which is really vague. I mean, that's really, like I said, nobody reads this stuff. Nobody. And then the other one was called The Act of Peter. So it's just a short, kind of a one-off story about Peter and his family. And I wrote a book on it. It was like, I don't know, 3 pages of English, and I wrote about 200 pages of scholarship on that, which again, why? So, but there you
go. I'll probably ask to hunt them down because Peter's my kind of doofus.
But that's, I mean, it just gives you an idea of just how really narrow that stuff can get, and you're in a room of specialists or in your general area, and like 3 of them can understand what you're saying, which means you don't get a lot of critique. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I have no idea what you're talking about, but keep doing you, that kind of thing. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. So Shepherd, the first part that we've got is finished, unless you're a super nerd like me and already have all the calibers.
Right.
So the next section of the Shepherd, is it going to start out as a nonstop like the last section did, or is it going straight to the trade?
Yeah, it'll be a nonstop. So there'll be an issue 1 for the Path of Souls, and it's supposed to come out later this month. Originally, it should have been already out, but we've been having some issues with the printer. It's all good stuff because we've been selling a lot of books. We can't print them fast enough. So that if you're going to have a problem, that's a nice problem to have. So I'm not upset about it. So that's coming out, issue 1. And then it will all, in November, the entire trade will drop at that point, the Path of Souls. And then that's when I really get excited because that's, as you pointed out, that's all been published by Caliber at one time. So starting next February 22, you're going to start to see what I've been doing since then. And it's a lot. I can tell you right now that there is over 300 pages of story that is yet to be seen, that has never been published yet. 4 different stories. I have a 3-issue story called The Valentine, which is going to drop in February. The first issue will drop, and that'll be individual issues. 3 individual issues is what Joseph and Rich have told me. And then to follow that up as part of the trade, it'll be a one-shot called The Pit. And that those 2 stories, The Valentine and The Pit, are going to deal with the children of the shepherd. Now, you may remember from the first volume that he left behind a daughter and a little boy. And if you remember the first volume, they exhibit paranormal abilities. Like the little boy they both can see ghosts. So it's The Valentine and The Pit are going to be following those 2 characters and adventures with them. So it's going to be a very different kind of thing going on then. And then we have 2 big graphic novels coming out that we're working on. One's called The Tether, which focuses on Val. It deals with some of his unresolved issues. And then the one that we're working on right now is called The Burning Maid. And The Burning Maid deals with Joan of Arc, but imagines her as a villain in the afterlife.
Ooh.
So I'm excited to see what people... I will tell you that as a little hint towards that is that will be the darkest shepherd story you've ever seen. It's it'll be a good fit for Black Caravan.
So this second trade that is coming, if you were going to pitch that to someone to get them excited for that arc, and then kind of give them an idea of like, hey, I definitely want to read the first arc. What
Sure.
does this middle piece feel like?
Okay, the Path of Souls. Of course, the Shepherd is always ghost stories. So if you like ghost stories, you're in the right place. That's what the kind of thing we tell. And I've always been fascinated with ghost stories that have a reason for the haunting. So you unravel the reason for the haunting, like House on Haunted Hill and stories like that. One of my favorite movies is a movie called The Devil's Backbone by Guillermo del Toro. It's in Spanish. I recommend it to anybody. It's an excellent movie. But again, it's a ghost story, that type of thing. Anyway, the Path of Souls envisions a hospital in the afterlife for the souls of soldiers from different time periods and cultures that are suffering from post-traumatic stress. And so we encounter their stories. We kind of go back into their stories, encounter them, and kind of help them work through the trauma that they're dealing with so that they can move on in the afterlife. And that's basically what the Path of Souls is about.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's born out of my wife's work. My wife works for the VA, and her specialty is counseling for post-traumatic stress, PTSD, military sexual trauma, traumatic brain injury. And so, that's kind of the air that I breathe. My wife's talking about it, her work all the time. She started a foundation for free retreats for veterans and active duty who are dealing with that. So I hear about it all the time. And then in hearing about it, I just thought, wonder how that could play in the shepherd's world. And I thought, oh, what if it was a hospital for souls, So, and then it kind of went there. So it's like a VA in the afterlife. So
that's such an important thing in a work that your wife does. And I think it's a great idea to bring it to be part of the shepherd's world, because there might be people that are dealing with those kinds of things, and to be able to have something to relate to and think through stuff. It's a really important thing.
I think it's more part of American culture now than maybe ever before, because you got to keep in mind, we've been at war since 2001. We're just now leaving the Afghan theater, and everybody either knows somebody who's been deployed or knows somebody who knows somebody who's been deployed. You're going to encounter these people. Even something as simple as every 4th of July, if you're paying attention, there are people that cannot deal with the fireworks. They can't, because it just brings up all this stuff from either Iraq or Afghanistan. As simple something as American as fireworks on the 4th of July, and they just can't deal with it. Just too much.
Corey asked the question, is that a David Mack original kabuki in the background for you?
Are you talking about that one right there?
No.
That is Stefano Cardicelli, who did, that is, he did The Shepherd. The other, this one right here is from my novel called Climbing the Dragon's Ladder. That is the first novel that I ever did. It's an illustrated novel. It's published with Caliber Comics. It was the beginning of my transition into comics. It was my first experience of working with an artist, and I fell in love with it.
Is it something that's still in print if someone wanted to?
Yeah, you can get it. Like I said, it's called Climbing the Dragon's Ladder. It's an early Christian novel. It's about a woman martyr by the name of Perpetua. She lived in North Africa, in Carthage, what is modern day Tunisia, and she died for her beliefs March 7th, 2003. And why we know about her, she actually left a diary behind of her experiences in prison. And in the ancient world, most of the writings that have survived are almost, we're talking 98%, 99% of them are male writings. So to find an authentic woman's voice from the ancient world is just beyond lucky, And the woman that comes across in that diary she's a freight train. She's only 22 years old at the time of her death, and she's an absolute freight train in terms of the way she thinks, her level of independence, intelligence, charisma, all those things that she has. She's just, when you read her diary, you just fall in love with her. So
I'm going to track that down. We've run out of time. Oh no! Where can everyone follow you on social media so they can ask you follow-up questions if they've missed it?
Yeah, we're always happy to have people following us and support us. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. It's The Shepherd Comic. There's also a website, The Shepherd Comic. And you can find us on any of those places. We're on Twitter. It's called The Shepherd Com. There wasn't enough room for the IC on Twitter. Of course, you can find The Shepherd on scoutcomics.com and also at the Black Caravan website, which is theblackcaravan.com.
Oh no, it dropped it. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to say goodbye, and we're going to come right back and talk to the amazing Gavin Smith.
comics market is ripe with new titles by creators who are determined to get their books into your hands. My name is Henri Compen. For the last decade, I've been making and selling my own creator-owned comics and dealing as a collector in live sales. My signature series, Yi Sun Shin, is the book that cannot be defeated in battle and has over 250,000 copies in print. Now I'm taking comics to the next level and laying the groundwork for my fellow creators to get their voices heard so they can connect directly with you. This is your chance to engage live with top comic book talent and get your comics signed without having to wait in long lines or pay any fees. But remember, we only have a limited amount of their books in stock, so always remember to call it as you see it.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing? We're going to take 1 second and we're going to have Andrea back on so we can say thank you so much for being on our show.
Yeah.
Dropped you in your last word.
Like, there you go. It's just like, you're out. There's the door. So, no, I appreciate it. Jen, it's always wonderful. And I just want to say, I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for all the support, not just for the Shepherd, but I mean, for Scout. I saw one of the shows where you have wearing the Scout t-shirt, and that just means a lot. It really does. I mean, every ounce of support, all the, the reading our books and encouraging our creators, it just means everything to us. So thank you.
I believe very deeply in all that you guys do. So take it back and tell the team that it's not a put on. I'm a true fan.
I believe that. I really do. One of these days, you need to submit a book. You need to throw a book in. You should actually.
I might be working on something.
There you go. See, and I will tell you this: if you're interested in doing anything that's aimed at all ages or children, not that you have just that, but that's something that we do. The quarterly. I'm sure you talked with Richard before. We do that quarterly magazine, Frontiers, for the kids. And if you want to do just a short story for that, 6 to 8 page short story. It's a thing. Just wanted to say it.
Start thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for giving of your time so freely. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank
All right.
you, sir.
I'll leave now. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
And now Gavin Smith is coming up. Sorry,
Hey, gang.
Gavin.
No, it's all good.
He was like wrapping it up. And
Oh, I saw it. Yeah. You can blame it on me. I could. I'll take credit for it. I came in and kicked him off.
Oh, wait. Do you have the same problem I have, that technology tends to not work around you for reasons that are unexplainable?
Mine's probably more explainable, considering I've had this computer since 2012, and it's probably on its last leg. So, I mean, there's probably an actual cure, and that's getting a new computer. So, well.
What you didn't see is in between, for the break. I'm talking to my IT guy who is coming in, and we're trying to make decisions about upgrades for just about everything, because some of the computers we have here are from when we opened the store in 2010, and they weren't new then.
Right.
So it's just trying to figure out how many big steps to make. I know it's the same for you, because you use computers for your work.
Yeah. Well, I had my computer crash probably at the right time last year, which was about a week before everybody went into quarantine. So my computer crashed. I was in the middle of this job. I was doing this job with Eric Paliki. We were doing this one shot for this Australian company that I don't think anybody will ever see, because it's in Australia. But
I sit down now.
I know. But it was my computer crashed, and I had to take it into this Mac store to get it fixed and get my hard drive replaced. And luckily, they were able to get like all my stuff off there and just put it on a new hard drive and fix the computer, which was great. But I mean, if it had happened like a week later, I probably wouldn't have been able to get my computer fixed for like 3-4 months. So, yeah.
That would be tough. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I can't imagine. Do you work digitally primarily?
No, I draw by hand, but
You're my new favorite person.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never meet anyone that does practical art.
yeah, I draw on paper, but I blue line my pencils because I have such a heavy hand. So I do all my penciling on 11 by 17 computer paper. I scan that in, then I print it onto Bristol blue line, and then I ink on top of the blue line, because if I were to ink right on top of my pencils, it would just be my line would be a mess. So yeah, that's
What do you use for ink? What is are you a
everything.
a
I use brush, I use nibs sometimes, I use a lot of like microns or markers, some washes, like, you know, whatever I can get my hands on to make it black or white. A lot of whiteout, pro white. My desk is a mess. Like, this is just like, I don't know if you can see some of that. Like, I have this cabinet that comes out, and then I put a piece of wood over it, and then I just put a bunch of, you know, there's a bunch of stuff right here. But this is only like, I'm penciling a book right now, and like once I get the pencils approved, I can go to inks. So that's just like all the stuff I have out right now just for while I'm penciling. When it's inked, it becomes like a unruly stack, and I need to just go through everything and just throw some stuff away, get rid of some stuff. But I'll hold on to like markers for way longer than their shelf life.
Well, I mean, but you can still use them for things that are supposed to not be fully, you know, like smudgier stuff.
Right. And I do a lot of texture work, which is probably why I use a lot of stuff too. So like, you know, like a dry brush, or a dry marker will get a cool line that I probably wouldn't be able to make with a fresh new one, which is nice. So yeah,
you do your own pencils and own inks.
Yeah.
Does that mean that for you can do less detail on the pencil because you know you're going to fill in that in ink, or you just go all out anyway?
It's a little of both. Kind of depends on the page. If I'm working with like right now I'm drawing Star Trek for IDW, and so with stuff like that, some of the environments I kind of really have to pay attention to and make sure, and it's Star Trek, you got to get it right, otherwise Star Trek people are gonna revolt. I have a little leeway since I'm working in the mirror universe that I can get away with some stuff, but for the most part I try to stick close to the reference, what they give me. And so in cases like that, I'm penciling tight, and also I'm dealing with likenesses, so you know, Jean-Luc Picard's got to look like Patrick Stewart. So so stuff like that I'm penciling tightly. When it comes to looser stuff like more natural backgrounds like space and planets, and you know, like right now I'm drawing the scene that's kind of on an asteroid, so I can kind of be loose with that. It's like it's just kind of generic rocky background, and then there's, you know, the space pod that landed on it's got to be right, but you know, the rocks around it I can just kind of do when I get to inking. Like, I'm not gonna, you know, break my wrist over that. I'll save that for when it gets approved for inking stage. So
wait, you don't have to make all rocks look like they come out of the California desert?
Right. No, my editor's pretty good at, you know, reading between the lines and stuff, and just letting me kind of trusting me to do my thing, which has been very nice.
So did you plan this out, that you're going to have stuff, both your things releasing in October? Because you also have Dead Legends.
I did not. So Star Trek is a relatively new gig. It's Star Trek: The Mirror War, which is on the cover of Previews World, or in Previews right now, which was insane to me. I did not know that was coming. Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, that was crazy to me. I didn't know that was coming at all. With Way Blue World, I knew that this was going to be coming out around October for the trade. The first issue comes out this Wednesday. But the plan was to have the trade around October, so we would have it in time for New York Comic Con. And then it just happened to be a lucky break that Star Trek was hitting in October as well. I thought it was going to be in September. No one really told me anything. Like, so I started working on Star Trek about end of May, beginning of June, around that time. Or I think that's when I got the gig, something like that. And the first issue's done. I'm right halfway right now in between on the second issue. So yeah, no clue it was going to come out then, but it's kind of convenient because I think it each release is staggered by a week. So I think the 5th issue of Dead Legends 2 comes out digitally the last week of September, and the first week of October is Star Trek: The Mirror War #1, and then the Dead Legends 2 trade paperback comes out the following week. So I'll have a nice little 3-week span of releases, which is nice.
So perfect.
Yeah, it's great. I couldn't be happier.
So you're the writer, James Maddox. How did you guys get together to work together?
James and I have been friends for a very long time. We met around the same time. He might have been doing conventions a couple years prior to me, but I came out of the Joe Kubert School in 2011, and I was working on my own creator-owned book at the time. I self-published. I did literally everything on it, except for like a buddy of mine from school, a guy named Orion Zangara, who's Joe Kubert's grandson, actually. He co-wrote a little bit of Human City with me, but the rest of it I wrote and drew and penciled, did the whole thing, and self-published it in like 100-copy runs at a time. So whenever I'd run out, I'd just order 100 more and move those from show to show. But we were at the Gym City Comic-Con, actually, and we were sitting across from each other, and we just became buddies. We kept talking, and then it just kind of seemed like James was at every show I was at, and had a lot in common. And it was one of those things where we always talked about, maybe one day we'll work together. And, I think I had just started working on accelerators at the time, and that seemed like I was in that for the long haul, and I was.
That's where I know you from. Dadgummit, it's been
I
eating
know.
me alive. I'm like, how do I know him?
Yeah.
Accelerators.
So yeah, I've done every issue of the Accelerator so far. There's supposed to be a volume 5. I don't know when that's going to happen. We'll see. It's supposed to be the final volume too, so I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah. But I was, and we had always planned, we'll get around to working together at some point. And an opportunity came up where we were supposed to do a backup story for an Image book. And the creator, it never ended up happening, so I'll leave all the fine details out. Yeah, I'll tell you off stream. But no, so the creator asked, he's like, well, Maddox is going to do one of the stories. Do you want to do it with him? And I said, yeah. So I called him, but James had already offered it to another artist he collaborates with. And he was like, if he says no, then it's yours. And they just happened to be in the car together at the same time. So so he hung up and he's like, Gavin's doing it if you're not, so you have to make up your mind now. And the guy said yes. And then it worked out that Chris Charlton and I, Chris Charlton was asked to do one too. If you know Chris, he's a Cincinnati guy. He did Black of Heart that's coming out from Source Point.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. So he's in that circle. He's really good friends with James and myself. And he said he had asked Chris. So I texted Chris, and Chris was like, yeah, I was going to ask you anyway. Great. Perfect. So the four of us, James's artist, Chris, and myself and James, we did these backup stories. We got them done, and then the book just never came out. And in the meantime, James and I found a window where we put together a pitch with that creator of the other book, and then nothing ever happened with that either. And so we were just in a hotel at a convention one time, I think in Louisville, and we just decided, like, let's just do our own thing. Like, I think we were kind of hoping to get a break on the back of someone else's success of their book, and we were like, well, let's just not wait around for that. Let's just do our own thing. And I've always wanted to do a martial arts book, so I tricked James into watching all these movies with me. And yeah, it kind of was a trick because he had, I don't think it was, I think it was the last thing he expected to come out of my mouth when he asked, because he asked me what I wanted to work on. And I said, I've always wanted to do a martial arts book. And I kind of had a loose idea of a couple of the characters I wanted. And this is funny because James and I actually did an interview last week where we got into an argument over who created Red Death for Dead Legends. But it was, no, I thought you created it, or no, I thought you were created. It was one of these things where like we weren't trying to take credit, we were trying to give the other person credit. So, if that legal battle ever happens, we have that as evidence. But yeah, it was just one of these things. We were in the hotel room. I was doing commissions, and we started talking about it. I gave him a rough idea of, I'd always wanted to do a character named Blind Tiger, and I thought that'd be perfect for a martial arts book. And then we came up with Yan and Red Death, and we came up with Damon, and we just all the pieces started fitting together really well. And we decided okay, let's just do it. And I always wanted to do a martial arts book, like I said, and I have some writing experience, like I said earlier, but not I needed James to make it make sense for me. Sure. And he put together a great story and came up with things that I never would have thought of that make the story great. And I think we just collaborate really well together, to the point where whenever we do scenes, fight scenes, which is a very fight scene heavy book, we've stopped scripting those out. Now it's just fight scene, 3 pages, do your thing. And I'm like, all right, I got this. So
awesome. When
it's pretty
that closely. You're just you know what you're doing.
Pretty much, yeah. If you read the trade, issue 4 is very loose fight scene where once we got into that rhythm, where we got to issue 4, at that point we were pretty good at it. The first in the first issue, there's Blind Tiger's fight. That was the initial pitch that we came up with. It was about 8 pages. And James had that pretty scripted out, and that was when I said, let me just do this, and I promise it'll work, and he trusted me enough to let me do it. But by the time we got to issue 4, which is all one big fight, and it's a silent issue as well, it was, at that point, the script might have been this long. It might have been old school Marvel style. It's just all right, on this page you need to hit this beat, on this page you need to hit this beat, other than that, go. And we've done the same thing with Volume 2. Our issue 4 in Volume 2 is another silent issue, but it's a much crazier situation this time around. So
does this, do you feel like it's going to be a trilogy, or do you feel like
it'll be a trilogy? We talked to Tyler Chintanner, the publisher at Wave Blue World, and I think early on when he was signing us up for Volume 2, he's like, I feel like you guys are trying to trick me into a trilogy. And we were like, yeah. That's exactly what we're doing. And that was kind of our plan the whole time. We always wanted just 3 volumes. We didn't want to do any more unless down the road we have some spin-offs. But the Dead Legends, the main story, is 3 volumes. And we leave Volume 2 where we have to finish up with the 3rd volume. So that was our trick, and it's a pretty good cliffhanger for Volume 2, I think. But I'm incredibly biased, so.
Do you have any other far out projects you're working on?
Besides Star Trek, not at the moment. Well, that's not totally true. Rich Doak and I had put together a pitch that is kind of on the shelf for now, because I had a window after Dead Legends 2 and in between Star Trek where we started working on this. Rich is another friend of mine that we've always wanted to work together. I've done a couple of things for him here and there. I did a 5-page story for oh gosh, what was this book? Why can't I think of the name of his book right now? I feel terrible. He did a book that at IDW, and then Source Point ended up picking it up a while back.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, right? Had goblins in it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, he's Gutter Magic. Gutter Magic.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so Gutter Magic, I did a 5-page backup in. I think it was supposed to be in one of the extended Gutter Magic books that SourcePoint put out. I don't know if they ever did. If they did, Travis, give me a copy. But then I also did a pinup with Kenny Porter, the writer Kenny Porter, like he in Wailing Blade, Rich's other book, where Rich was just pairing up writer-artist team, where the writer would do a page of prose and an accompanying illustration. So I did an illustration for that. And then after I did that, that's when Rich and I said we should talk and agreed to work together. We came up with this really cool story called Blood Moon. But that's so far down the line that might not happen till like 2023, 24 maybe, because Star Trek's got me for another year. And then so they'll have me, so I'm doing all 8 issues of Mirror War, or 8. The way Mirror War is structured is there's a 0 issue which comes out in September, then 1 through 8, which is the main series, and then there's 4 tie-ins, and I'm doing the 8, the main story, 8 issues. So that starts in October, and I'm not sure what the release schedule is like for that, but I imagine 2 issues, then a fill-in, 2 issues, then a fill-in.
Should do really well, because I remember the last Mirror World related Star Trek was very successful for that.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I picked up, like, once I told, I had gotten the gig, I was kind of keeping it a secret. I told my art rep, Josh Raybuck over at Modern Mythology, I was like, yeah, they have me doing this Mirror War, and he flipped out, and he's like, that's the best Star Trek that's coming out. And everyone seems very excited for what I've been doing. Scott and David Tipton are a pleasure to work with. We have a little private Facebook Messenger thread that whenever I don't know something Star Trek, I just say, hey, what's this? And they're like, this. And they have all the reference for me, and it's beautiful. And they're really accommodating to my much more limited Star Trek knowledge than those two. They know it all, and I'm still kind of a newbie to it. But I've been watching a ton of it ever since I got the gig, and I'm really enjoying it. So, but yeah, they're accommodating. So after Star Trek, Dead Legends 3, I don't think it's a spoiler to say at that point. We've pretty much said that we're going to do a 3. And that'll probably take me to 2023. Then I'm not sure what happens in 2023 for me. So,
People have read Mirror War. And
yeah.
like, how do we work with this guy?
Yeah. I hope more projects down the line with IDW would be awesome. They've got a lot of stuff I want to draw, and I think after 8 issues, I'll have developed a good enough relationship with them to continue on. Maybe more Star Trek, maybe something else.
Really, even Transformers. I look at the stuff in Transformers. I'm like, well, just shoot me now. Boxes.
That is on the list. I wouldn't mind doing Transformers, but I've got some other stuff higher up on that list that IDW has that is more my bag. So, but that's again a ways down the road. I'm very excited about Mirror War. First issue's fun. Second issue gets even more fun. But yeah.
All right, I have to, just because I saw something on that you put on your socials. I have to show you, because I know that you're a corgi enthusiast.
I am. That's adorable. Yeah, I had to lock my corgi out of the room when I was getting ready for this. I'm on my second corgi right now.
They're so cute. I have a friend that designed all this stuff. She is also obviously obsessed with the corgis, even corgi butts.
Yes. Well, it comes with the territory. It's very cute. That's great. Yeah.
Corgis. Did you just happen to get a corgi and then now you love them?
I had a corgi. My first corgi, named Wally, was named after Wally West. Yeah, so Wally was my first corgi that I had before I ever went to Kubert School in 2007, 2006, something like that. and it was my first apartment by myself, and my mom's corgi had a litter, and I got the most chill one, and that was Wally, and Wally was great, and I had to give Wally back to my mom when I ended up going to Cubert, so I couldn't take him with. But then after I graduated and moved back to Indianapolis, I got to dog sit him a lot. And then he passed away last year. And then Coco, who we have now, she's about 14. We've had her since she was 10. She's hilarious, kind of crazy, very different vibe from Wally. But yeah, we've had her about 4 years. There was another dog that I think my mom adopted and saved from another someone else, and she had her for about 6 months, and then she offered her to me, and I was like, yeah, let's bring Coco back in the mix. So I've been obsessed with them for about 14 years now. And I'm probably have a corgi for the rest of my life,
because they don't really have a tail.
Oh yeah. Sometimes she just like pivots with her butt. It's very cute. Like she's just like, well, this is a gigantic base, and she'll spin in place to move around.
Well, we're looking forward to reading the single tease comic book.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a tease. It's 24 pages, but there's a variety of. I'll show them off here. There's a variety of covers. Issue 1. That's the regular cover. This is the 1 in, I think, 10 variant cover. The black and white version. This is a convention-only cover.
Which convention?
Any convention I'm at. Yeah, so like this is exclusively only available at conventions. So as of right now, I'm booked for Lexington in September, Cincinnati in September, New York Comic Con, and Indiana Comic Con. C2E2 most likely, but let's hope. And then this one is available at Comic Book University, where I will be this Wednesday signing books, and that's in Indianapolis, Indiana. Exclusive to the store, and it'll be available on their eBay page as well. But yeah, 4 covers. Yeah.
All right, well, we ran out of time, but make sure you guys run to your local comic shops or find them using the comicshoplocator.com site.
Yes.
And add it to your pull box, or at least let them know you want to have this single issue so you can try it out and decide if you want to grab up the trade that's going to drop in October. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You and your time.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
We'll see you again sometime, maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll see you in New York.
Yes. Knock on wood. Let's hope it still happens.
Oh, I know.
All right.
All right, thanks, everybody. We're going to stay tuned. There's more awesome stuff happening on the EXP next.